Gran Turismo 7's first online time trial of 2025 is here, and admittedly it's a pretty awesome one as well. It brings along a pretty cool theme overall, as well as car choice selection, something that has been missing for what feels like a very long time at this point. So without further ado, let's dive into this one. So here we are then with an overview of the lap time challenge, the first of 2025 at Spa, featuring Group 3 cars. However, this is not open to every single car in that category. It very much has a theme of JGTC. So in terms of the finer detail, it is a top 3% for gold, which will bag you 2 million credits, top 5% for silver for 1 million, and top 10% for 250k. The track is of course at Spa on the standard layout. Entry period is the 2nd of the 1st 2025 until the 16th of the 1st 2025. Usable tyres and types are racing hards, intermediates and wets. However, you will only need the racing hards. Wide body prohibited, nitrous and overtake prohibited. Regulations and specified cars, well, it's going to be the Toyota Supra GT500, Nissan GTR GT500 and of course the NSX GT500. Car restrictions, the BOP/tuning prohibited is set to high speed. Car use can be a garage car or event specified. Car settings are specified, track limits are normal, and shortcut penalty and wall collision will invalidate your lap time. So let's begin then with some general tips and tricks on how to get along with this time trial, and the first is absolutely turn your assists off. I've said this pretty much in all of these videos that at this point there are only a handful of cars in GT7 that react better with assists on, and thankfully this time around it is no different. Every single one of these three vehicles will perform much better with your assists off than they are on. The only ones I recommend having on default is going to be the ABS. Apart from that, turn the rest of them off and get the most out of this machinery. Next up, I fully recommend using a manual transmission for all three of these vehicles. Whilst their gear ratios do differ and some cars are better than others through specific sections of the track, to get the most out of every single one of these, I fully recommend a manual transmission. Having that extra control over what the vehicle is doing and when is certainly going to give you a massive advantage over those who are still in automatic. So for me, manual transmission is a must, and it is not too difficult once you get that muscle memory down. Next up, I have Don't Give Up, and this is a very obvious one, but you do have 2 weeks to complete this. Even if you're coming back every few days or so, you will probably see a very gradual improvement, even if you are not the best player in GT7. And whilst those top times may seem like an absolute world away, you'll probably surprise yourself just how quickly you adjust if you keep coming back on a consistent basis and just don't throw in the towel. Now the next two tips are very closely related. The first is in the menu before you actually get into the time trial. I recommend going over to the leaderboard, global ranking, and then loading up the fastest replay. This way you can see what the fastest times in the world are doing and where you can improve on your own run. Another thing you can do is also go ahead into the actual ranking board once you're in the event, go to the global rankings and load up a ghost that you can follow and learn from. Now it's time to talk about the cars. There's a choice of 3 of them here from the JGTC. Now of course all 3 of these cars do have their strengths and weaknesses. They are all under BOP conditions, so I'm going to give you an informed opinion on all 3 of them. Of course, starting off with the Honda NSX. This was my favourite car of 2024, so to get behind the wheel of it so early in 2025 was a great thing, and straight away I will admit this is perhaps the fastest and most meta car of the 3 for the next 2 weeks. So it does seem that after checking the leaderboards, the NSX is consistently the fastest in the right hands. It is very much a risk versus reward vehicle, and certainly has the highest learning curve of all 3 of them. Now honestly, if you can adapt to the NSX's driving style, there is a very high chance you are going to be fastest on your friends' leaderboards than those that aren't using it. Now in terms of the NSX, of course, it is a completely different laid out car in comparison to the GTR and the Supra. Now the drawback of this is that in this straight line, this is certainly the slowest of the bunch. So set to 1, you may notice that your time drops off in comparison to both the Supra and the GTR. However, through that midsection and latter half of the track, this thing is absolutely unmatched. The NSX is an incredibly agile and maneuverable machine. It also seems to have much higher downforce than the other 2 vehicles, meaning that okay, you're losing time in sector 1, but after that you're going to be gaining back and then improving moving on all the other cars no matter what. However, again, the driving style for this car can be incredibly difficult to get your head around. It requires a lot of on-off throttle and throttle control. It also is incredibly twitchy at the rear and may feel like it's getting away from you, but if you can gel with this car, there is no doubt this is going to be the quickest of the bunch. So the second car we have is the Nissan Skyline GTR GT500. Of course, based on the legendary R34 GTR, this is certainly a mixed bag vehicle. There is no denying in Sector 1 and in terms of its top speed, this is the fastest of the bunch by an absolute margin. This thing can hit some insane top speeds, so you'll have no problem whatsoever in Sector 1. And when it comes to the fast flowing corners, the Skyline is absolutely fine through there. Where it really does lose its momentum is through the kind of low to mid speed corners. It just seems to have this tendency to lose all its downforce through there and slip away and want to consistently run wide. So admittedly in Sector 1 I was fastest in the Skyline by an absolute margin, but unfortunately as soon as you get to the middle section where it is really tight and twisty, it really did lose a lot of its momentum to a ridiculous degree. Again, through the high speed corners it's not bad, the car will keep its downforce and it'll be all fine. It's as soon as you get to those mid to low speed corners where the car just falls apart to a ridiculous degree where the NSX is really flying through there. It's a very strange feeling that the car will just refuse to turn itself in, it will then run wide, and then once you do get the car back around, it will start trying to kick out on exit if you're at a low enough speed. And unfortunately I would say it just affects the car too much for this to be extremely competitive. However, I will say whilst the car does have its downsides, it is certainly a much easier car to get to grips with and learn and drive than the NSX. I would put it in a more intermediate category. It's not the easiest of the three, however it isn't too bad either. Again, it's just let down due to the lack of downforce in the low to mid speed, and of course that little breakaway that it tries to do on exit once you put the power down. However, fortunately it is not difficult to go ahead and catch the GTR, so overall I would say it's easier to learn and drive than the NSX, but certainly not as good. And of course, last up we have the Toyota Supra. This to me is the ultimate beginner car of the bunch. If you just want to grab a vehicle and get used to Spa or get used to the online time trial, I would absolutely recommend the Supra. It's a jack of all trades. It isn't the best at anything, however it does everything absolutely decently. So there is no reason not to try this car if you don't want to. If you're new to the game as well and you're getting used to maybe having assists off or a manual transmission, this absolutely is the go-to one of the bunch. It's consistent and it's enjoyable. So now it's time to take you through my personal fastest lap so far. Of course there will be improvements over the next couple of weeks, but this acts as a baseline I guess. So in terms of the track, we start off on the typical start finish straight of this Spa layout. You want your rear end just past the 100 board to brake nice and heavy, bring it on the inside, out to the outside, and then accelerate as fast as possible. Now for the rest of this sector, you're going to be pretty much flat out. You're going to be heading down the hill and you're going to do a bit of a cut here. If you angle it right, you can be pretty much flat out. So we're going to go up to the left, try not to cut the line there as it will invalidate you, and then clip both of these curbs. Unfortunately, I did end up clipping the inside of the right hander there and it made the car a little bit unstable. So it wasn't perfect through there, but we did carry enough momentum for the main straight here. Now you're going to be absolutely flat out until you see the curb begin on your left hand side. Use that as a braking marker, bring the car in. I kept my car in second gear here, exactly the same through the left hander, and then up into the right hander here. So again, you can see that the rear of the car is just trying to get away from me. I short shift on exit to keep it nice and stable, and then we have this right hander here. Now I put it into first and then shift up to second around about the exit of the corner. This way I'm nice and stable on exit, keep it in second, into the left, run up on the curb but not too much like I did, or else unfortunately it does cost you a little bit of time. Get ready for this left-hander here. Now it is quite a fast and flowing one, but if you get it wrong you're going to lose a ton of time here. I was by no means perfect through there, but I kept it nice and stable and the car didn't break away from me. Now again, just before the curb, brake really heavy into the right hander. I'm going to put it in second gear here. Now just be aware that those little kind of sticky up parts off the curb on the right and left hand side will invalidate your lap time if you just remotely slightly touch them. So just be careful of those to keep your distance, but try and get as close without absolutely clattering them. Once again, it's the same on the right-hander here. It's not too bad through here, but on the exit of this right-hander, it can be incredibly deceiving. It is much quicker than you probably expect. And again, I wasn't perfect through there, but I did carry enough momentum. Now you have a very, very fast section here. However, the left-hander may require you to either downshift or just lift off the throttle slightly. As you can see for me, I'm going to keep it in fifth, slight lift and then out wide, ready for the next tricky part, and it's to finish up the lap here. So I recommend braking just as the 150 board ends, between that and the 100, get it onto the inside, and unfortunately the curb's going to make the car extremely unstable here. It just breaks away slightly and that does affect me for the left-hander, but you want to go up one curb, onto the next, and then out wide without catching too much of the green, ready to accelerate to the finish. And with that, it's lap complete. So there we go. That is the first online time trial of 2025. I must admit, it is an absolutely awesome time trial. I really like the choice of the JGTC machinery, and there's certainly a car for everyone. Now, in terms of Spa, it can be incredibly tricky, and there's going to be a much higher learning curve here than we've seen in some of the previous online time trials, but I would say it's worth it. Anyway, let me know what you think in the comment section down below, and I will see you a little later on. Take care, guys. Peace.